Cool, man. So, my name is Philip Ty, and I'm with Eric Irvine. And welcome to the podcast where we are going to have insightful conversation about business life, mindset, personal life, and relationship in a very genuine way. And so, let's start off by I actually never met Eric before. Probably was it April? I think I met you in April. Is it April? No, not
No,
April. No, it was July actually. Sorry, July.
yeah, end of July.
End of July.
Yeah, a month ago.
And we met on a bus on community camp, which is 2023 with Pace Morby, Jerry Norton, Vina Jetty, and a whole bunch of other well-known people in the real estate space. And we just connected on the bus, and we were talking about just different things that we were doing in real estate and life. And I actually don't even know much about Eric's background. But yeah, I'm going to let Eric take away and kind of enlighten me about, his background, his story, and like kind of where he's coming from.
Yeah, well, thanks for setting it up, and thanks for letting me sit next to you on the bus. I think I was running a few minutes late, so it was kind of like the last kid on the bus looking for a spot, and you were nice enough to scoot over and talk to me. So I guess none of this, but born and raised in Los Angeles, and lived there until I was 18, and left LA. I played soccer growing up in high school and whatnot, and then got a scholarship to go to Santa Clara University to play soccer. So I was there for 4 years, played actually 4.5. So I played 5 seasons at Santa Clara. Had a great time, but had a very structured life, in terms of like growing up playing sports and then in college playing sports. So after school, I just wanted to kind of let loose and do something else. So I saved up some money, packed a bag, and then got a one-way ticket to Spain. Lived in Spain for about a year. Just I lived in the south for about 6 months, and then the north in the Basque Country for 6 months, and just had this like free lifestyle, kind of like soaking up all these things that I didn't get to enjoy in college because it was so structured. Then when I moved back, went to San Francisco, spent a lot of time there, worked for number of different companies as a project manager. I've always kind of been that just very detail oriented person who likes to take the ideas of others and kind of put them into a very organized box and move them along. And so worked for, some startups, Fortune 500 company. And then I think in 2018, decided to move back down to Los Angeles and start my own business there, where I opened up an elder care company. And so ran a team of about 30 nurses and nursing aides, and we would provide in-home care to the elderly and disabled. So did that for several years. And then in probably like 2021, transitioned that job, like kind of morphed into a job where it was, or morphed into an opportunity where I was able to kind of do the same type of work, this like staffing, project management, caregiving type of solution, but for one family as opposed to, 15 or 16 families at any given time. So I sold off the business and then have, started my own kind of consulting firm, if you will. And so I've been doing that for the last 2 years, working for private families, doing staffing and property management. And then got into real estate, or full-time real estate, or half-time, I guess, since I'm still doing my other job. But joined Subto in April of this year, went to the mastermind, met a bunch of great people, and then ended up on a bus next to you about a month ago.
So that's a really cool background, man. So basically you were doing a staffing or like a home, like a facility for caring for elderly, and you had a staff of 30 people. And you said was that your business, or were you helping someone run that business?
Yeah. So, I mean, some good friends from childhood, high school, guys that I've known for 30 years, they started this business about, God, it must be like 15 years ago now. And for a very long time, they ran it by themselves. It was super successful, and they always had this idea of expanding it, building out like national franchises. But they never, it was always just this idea that they kind of were like, had like baked 75% or so. And then we had talked about it a few times, and I came up and said like, hey, I'm interested. I want to like help you guys grow and figure out if this is a good fit, and we can build it into something. So I came in as like their first franchisee and built it out with them. And then after I came on, we built out, I think opened up 2 more offices.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you have experience in the franchisee space, basically.
Somewhat. Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah. It was a really, really fun, frustrating experience. I'm glad I went through it.
So then you opened up another. So you sold the one that you kind of built up to over 30 staff members, right? Mm-hmm. And then you sold that off, and you started another one, right?
Yeah. So I was given through the connections I made at that company. One of the women that would hire me on to work on all of her cases, she was a social worker.
Okay.
So she would bring me on to all the cases where she needed, some sort of medical staff.
Right.
She asked me to basically help her write like an operations plan for this a particular case. And so I did that. It was supposed to be just, a week or so of work. It transitioned into something that I've been doing for a couple of years now. And so it just made sense to focus on this one thing as opposed to, juggling, a staff of 30 and, all the other little like details that go, running a small business.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay. So you are doing that right now. And how long do you foresee that being, I guess, part of your journey in real estate investing? Because that goes hand in hand with some of the stuff that Pace is talking about with assisted living care facilities, and how you can make a great return while also providing a great service to people that are in need. Have you thought about marrying those two together?
Yeah, I mean, so actually before I joined Subto and had connected with Pace, that was, I don't want to say top of mind, but definitely something that I'd thought about. It's a challenging space. There's so many, one, like the real estate aspect of it. And I think it's more attainable now that I know kind of the foundation of Subto, and, you don't necessarily have to, I guess, let me backtrack a second. So the big hiccup prior to learning about Subto was, okay, we want to have an assisted living facility or like a board and care or something like that. If you don't have the real estate already, the numbers wouldn't pencil out because real estate was so expensive in California. And so it's like, we can't do this. But now that I know that you could actually go in and get a home or a facility for, seller finance or subject to whatever it may be, then I imagine the numbers work out a lot better because the margins can be insane. But there's a lot of regulation that goes along with it. And then during COVID, it was awful. Like business was great for us because we were working in private homes.
Right.
But, facilities were a total nightmare. Like it was just like a petri dish and a breeding ground for COVID, and people were just trying to get their loved ones out of those facilities and into at home. But I think it's worth circling back and revisiting at some point for sure.
Yeah, because right now it sounds like you're in the business rather than like being the entrepreneur per se, right?
I'm still very much hands-on in what I do. It takes up a good amount of my day, but awards me some flexibility, like in the evenings and early mornings, to kind of pursue the real estate avenue.
Gotcha. Okay, so basically, I mean, you had a lot on your plate during that ramp up period of 30 plus staff members you had to manage and kind of like give direction to. Like, how did you end up managing all of that? Like, how did you find time for yourself and your personal life? Like, how did you prioritize your self health and then also be a good leader for those individuals that you had to,
Yeah, yeah.
direct?
I think I did my best to be a good leader, and especially during the pandemic, and neglected the self care for sure. You're running a team of around 30 people and caring for individuals who are immunocompromised, or just got out of the hospital with a broken hip or whatever it was. I wanted to make sure that everybody was taken care of, and then all of my staff still had jobs. Like, that was very, very important to me. So I bent over backwards to ensure that that everything went smoothly, and everybody had the hours that they needed, and all of that kind of led to me not, I don't want to say taking care of myself, but definitely not enjoying myself, not finding the time to do the things that I normally would do in order to just have self-care, for sure.
Yeah. What are those things that you do in your, like, I guess your daily routine to provide yourself self-care?
Yeah. I try to spend as much time outside as possible. I live close to the ocean, so I'm getting in the water every single day, even if it's for like a 3-minute plunge, just to get some salt water on me. It totally changes my outlook on the day. So I'll do that in the morning. Run, cycle, surf, whatever it is. I just need to do something that gets me away from my desk and my phone for at least an hour or two.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I mean, to touch on that topic of self-care and all that stuff, and where your I guess some of your challenges that you may have, either personal or business, in that duration of time when you're managing 30 people, or and running a business, were there any personal setbacks that you've had during COVID, or any time leading up to building that business that you've experienced that might have created a pivotal moment in your life, better for worse?
Yeah. I think I think COVID put a lot of stress on my then marriage, which is no longer. And so that was a huge piece of that. Like, failed marriage went through, and a lot of it happened during COVID, was finalized last year. And so kind of the peaks and valleys of that relationship were really focused on during those couple of years. And it was taxing, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're over it through now, and on the other side. So I'm guessing, based on what I'm hearing, I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs can, attest to this. If you're like a very driven individual, like Eric and myself, and you know, doing work all the time, you're gonna have to find some time to make time for the ones that you love, and kind of make sure that you nourish and nurture that relationship. Was that the case? Is that you didn't have any time, or is this like something, the fact where you're just more focused on the business and not spending time with her?
Yeah, I think it was probably a bit of both. I think we had two different, I'll say agendas, and I don't know if that's the right word, but I was focusing on my business, and she was focusing on hers, and they seemed to be going in like two very different directions. And then some other just communication complications that we came into. But it was a lesson in that I shouldn't say you, but I definitely need to focus on really cultivating that relationship, or a relationship moving forward. It's finding the time, even if it's 5 minutes in the morning over coffee or something, just to check in with that partner, to make sure that that everything is good, that you're on the same page, that that you're just like headed in the right direction, or at least aware of where the other person is going. Because if you don't if you don't pay attention to that, like your paths can diverge like pretty darn quick, I think.
Yeah, like a lot of resentment build up, and I'm sure a lot of resentment build up. It's also happens in regular partnerships, right? I mean, I've experienced this myself where uh you know it's kind of funny because if you're doing your own thing in one like avenue, you're walking your own path, and it's funny how the mind works, because your mind will play stories on you, and if you're not aware or conscious enough to catch those stories that are playing in the background, they tend to fester and then become more of a, like a quote unquote infection, instead of you having to just flush it out and basically just confront it and say, hey, I have a story in my head that's playing in the background where I'm continuously working, and I don't feel like you love me, XYZ, or whatever the communication might be. And it's better to kind of make sure you have those conversations and always communicate up front, so you don't have this huge separation by like month 3 or 4, and the stories that you have playing in the background pretty much take over, and you don't even realize it's taking over until post whatever situation, or reflection. So I've experienced that quite a bit myself in my business and relationships. So that's like a great like takeaway for me, what I've learned over
Yeah, and it's interesting because I feel like most times that story that you're telling yourself or that somebody is telling themselves is nonsense.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my gosh, do you not love me anymore? Or, are you wanting to be my business partner? Or I said this, did you take it the wrong way? And the other person's just like, no.
Yeah.
I was having a bad day, or like I hadn't had my cup of coffee, or like whatever it was. And it's so easy to let it spiral out of control.
Yeah.
When all it takes is just one acknowledgement, like, hey, are we good? And the other person will say like, yeah, we're good. So you can be done with it. Or no, I want to check in about whatever. So.
Exactly, man. Like, cause even like, so for, I give you an example, a real life example. I was, my fiance and I, were talking, and I was building resentment towards her because I was like working, or I wasn't personally building resentment towards her. My stories were building resentments toward her, like my ego. And it was telling me like, hey, you're working harder. And she's like doing her 9 to 5 job. She should work harder, just work as hard as you are. And basically I was noticing my stories in my head, and I was like, all right, I need to say this off my chest, just because my energy presence wasn't the loving, caring, goofy, silly person that she was in love with. So I was like, okay, let me just sit down, I'll have a conversation with her. And we had a conversation, and I just kind of spilled it out like, hey, this is what I'm kind of going through. These are the stories that I'm having right now. I know they're 100% not true. So I just wanted to clear the energy and take responsibility for my actions, because I think that's the best thing you can do, is take responsibilities for everything in your life, because that will make you a better person, and have you'll have the wherewithal to further change your action moving forward and think differently. So once we talked about it, she cried a little bit because she felt it, and she was happy that I acknowledged it. And then that energy dissipated, and it kind of cleared all of the resentment that we had for each other. And then we clearly define roles moving forward. Like, hey, I don't mind being the breadwinner or the person that works all the time to be able to support the family. I would just need you to help me out with, chores around the house, making dinner or going grocery shopping or whatever it may be. More of a traditional roles in this case. And it's been working like great since that conversation. And then, with anything else that comes up, we'll just have an adult conversation about it. We're not going to be like high school children and just try to hide our feelings and stories, because they're just stories. But yeah, that's what my experience is on that topic, and it's been very helpful since then.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you say that, just because there's this. I think there's this like misconception that partnerships are going to be 50-50.
Yeah.
Yeah. remember hearing this, like when I was getting married, it was just like, okay, it's like, you guys are in this and you're one half and you're the other, and it's 50-50. And it's like, dude, that's nonsense.
Yeah.
It's going to be 50-50. It'll be close at times, but then other, weeks it's going to be 90-10,
Yep.
70-30, like, and it's going to go back and forth because your needs will change, her needs will change. Yeah. Sometimes, business is going to be great for you and you're going to be making all the money, and then you're going to lose everything, but then her business is going to take off or whatever it is. And so it's just being comfortable enough with each other to have those conversations to say, no matter what, we're in this together. And if it's, not 50-50, but if it's close, fantastic. If we're way off, it's okay, because the other person is going to pick up the slack in some way. Yeah. And just having that healthy communication is really, really positive, I think.
Yeah. Moving forward, man, that's great about business too, as well. I mean, like, especially in real estate right now, my business is doing relatively well, and I'm spending all my time answering emails, taking phone calls, and trying to scale and, make something, out of it. And she has a more of a passive 9-to-5 as a cybersecurity. And sometimes she has busy days, and, sometimes I have slower days and I can make up the slack, and, vice versa. But yeah, I think that's a very, very valid point and a very healthy point to make. And if you don't know how to communicate, just say how you feel, and just be more direct, but like add a hint of, humbleness to it, is what I would say to that. Don't like go full force, like you're talking like a drill instructor. Just make sure that you can just ease on into it. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, let's get back to the fact that you're engaged. And so we can go back to, I don't know much about you other than, the few conversations that we've had and that we saw on the bus. So what's your story?
Yeah. So basically, I came from humble beginnings. I'm a son of immigrants from Vietnam, and my parents, and they flee from the war. My dad changed his last name from Lao to Thai because he didn't want to be associated with a potential draft once he, enters the United States. And so my mom and my dad, came to Virginia because they got sponsored by a naval officer in the military, United States military. And they pretty much were dating back and forth. But anyways, I was born in Los Angeles, Orange County. I was only there for about a year. And then I moved back to Richmond, Virginia, where my mom's family was already kind of settled. And from there, I grew up in a group home. I shared a home with another family, smaller family, and went to school, obviously, graduated high school. Then I went to the Marine Corps at 19, and then got out of the Marine Corps, studied software engineering at a technical school, got a software engineering degree, studied for about 4.5 years. At the same time, I realized that I had a financial problem and I wanted to retire early. And by 35, I'm 33 now. And so got into real estate investing 2017 timeframe, and joined Fortune Builders for a period of time. That cost about like $40,000 as my first education. I didn't even look anywhere else. I was like, oh, this is the program. I'm going to sign up for this program. It's a lifetime program. Then it took me a while to get my first deal. I was spending all my time working, and then after work, I would be studying real estate. And then if there was like a networking event in between those times, I would go to the networking event, do what I was told from the mentorship program that I ended up signing up with, and then basically did that for a whole year, rinse and repeat, until I got my first deal as a fix and flip, because I was like really comfortable in that, because I was not a good communicator at the time. I didn't like cold calling. I was scared of rejection. I had a lot of mindset issues during that time. But I was good at, what I felt like I was good at was fixing and flipping. And the deal that I got was a complete gut. It was like basically it just had 4 walls and no roof. That was my first project. It had a burnt roof. I was like, okay, cool, I can take this on. But basically, it took me almost a whole year to get that thing all the way done. And during that time, dude, I got fired from my job. I got fired from my job while fixing and flipping this property. And so me getting fired, it's a funny story about that. One day or one night I was hanging over with my friends and I had this gut feeling. Something was telling me like, oh, you're about to get fired on Monday. And it was a Sunday. I was like, huh. And then I told my buddy, I'm like, hey, I think I'm gonna get fired tomorrow. He's like, he started laughing at me and, you know, I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. The next day comes, probably about afternoon. I literally at this time wasn't really doing much. I wasn't on a project developing on anything. They had me on busy work. And at the meantime, I mean, it didn't really help my case where I was like taking calls in the middle of the day, going to like different like restroom breaks, different break rooms, just picking up calls and doing all these things. But I think that afternoon, my boss ended up calling me into a room and he gave his whole spiel like, you know, this whole gesture, like felt really bad. And he's like, hey, we gotta let you go. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm like, I just like knew it was coming because it was already like, I already felt it. I'm like, I kind of laughed it off. I'm like, I knew this was going to happen anyway. So, and then it went pretty much full swing into my fixing and flip, that one property. And then I got it up to speed, and sold it within 48 hours. The market actually saved me because, dude, I had this property appraised for 3-bedroom, 2-bath, but I had to scale it down to 2 bedrooms, 2.5 bath because of the time that I had left, and everything that went wrong with this property went wrong. Like I had to, someone busted in my fix and flip, stole all the wire the electrical wire in there, had squatters. I had the city come out and cite me for foundation issues where we didn't have that before. Dude, it was insane. I had to hire another contractor to finish up the renovations. It was just bonkers. But after that flip, I had another 4 flips that I ended up doing. 2 of them were full guts again, and then the other ones weren't so bad. And then I took a little break after my 5th flip. And during that time, I found another job as a software engineering again. And I joined Subto back in August 2020. And then, you know, during that time, I was going in a lull where I was like, man, I need to get more leads. I need more deals. And so I decided to be like vulnerable in one of the Subto accountability calls. And I just wanted to provide as much value as I possibly can based on my experience and provide all the resources that I had associated to the group. And, you know, sometimes when you surrender, you know, answers do come in different forms. And during that time, I found a business partner, Robert Lee, that was part of the Subto group. And we, like, after maybe like 2 or 3 months, we were talking, we partnered up on one deal, and that transpired into like I would say, I don't know, like 200 deals later, pretty much within the span of like 2.5 years.
Oh, wow.
So we did funny because this guy taught me a lot of things that I did not even know about just life and about myself. And he helped me through a lot of mindset issues that I was experiencing that I didn't know I had. And during this time, I mean, our first deal together, which was insane, was a property that he got under contract in Richmond, Virginia. And he was like, yo, you want to partner with me as a rental on this? I'm like, bro, you don't even know me. We just met like a month ago. Like, basically what you're saying is you want to get married on this property together without even knowing me. So I was like, really like, what? Like so blown away by that.
No.
And he's like, okay, do you want to be on title? He's like, no, I trust you. I'm like, so you don't want to be on title and you want me to do this property? I was like, bro, are you okay? Like, well, what is up? He's like, no, I just trust you. I'm like, all right. So that went through and we kept on doing deal after deal together. And by, you know, year 2.5 or so, 2 years in, we've done 35 fix and flips. We've wholesaled, you know, hundreds of properties together, bought a commercial building together. By the way, none of it is in his name. So it's also kind of crazy, but I'm a man of my word and I'm going to honor, you know, everything that we kind of built together with. So, you know, that's kind of been my journey up until the point where, okay, 2023 now, 2022, 2023, decided to jump into Gator, kind of left the wholesaling business kind of all, to itself, and to him, helped him build a business to 5 VAs, all up to like 23 VAs.
Yeah.
And he's been scaling his business like like tremendously well. Learned a lot of mindset issues about him. I've learned how to be more precise, with more discretion, and like really just being able to communicate better, having really good discernment with people, and really trusting my gut, the power of creation, law of attraction, and just learning how to rewire my brain in a way it produces success versus like self-sabotage, per se. So a lot of my success stems from that one person, Robert Lee, and he's a great mentor, great friend of mine, and really great guy. And his whole story is actually really fascinating too, if you ever get a chance to interview him. But yeah, basically that's where I'm at right now. And now I'm more focused on the Gator side of things. And like I told you before in the bus, like I was able to generate $50,000 to $60,000 in the month of July, just for connecting fees, and also just doing a little bit of Gator lending myself.
Right.
So I mean, man, there's a lot to that story, but like I can go deep in any other attributes, but that's the majority of like my little background history in a nutshell.
Yeah. I'm excited to, I mean, I've already kind of gotten into it with you about Gator and kind of what the possibilities are there. So I'm excited to get into that. Maybe not on this call, but
yeah,
when, sometime in the future, near future. But I'm curious. So you mentioned you were let go from work, and then in the few months that followed, I think you said you closed, or you did like 5 fix and flips. Roughly.
Yeah.
So do you see that I don't know if you were fired or laid off or whatever the correct term is, but leaving that job is really what pushed you in the right direction, or in this direction? Like, okay, you had nothing else holding you back. You might as well jump in 100%.
Yeah. I mean, that's so like basically me getting fired was actually a blessing, because I was, you can imagine full-time job 9 to 5. And then right after your 9 to 5, you're like rushing to the job site and like making sure everything gets fixed, or, getting materials that the contractors needs to, accommodate the job to get it to the finish line. So me getting fired, I didn't have any anxiety. I just knew what I needed to do, because I had this huge problem, this financial problem that I need to get off my hands. And so I think that was like the energy that I need to be able to start doing the things that I wanted to do. But after I got that first fix and flip done, I needed to get cash, because I broke even on that fix and flip. So I made no money. So I was still looking for a job, and I hired an agency to kind of help me get another job. And at the same time, I was also looking for deals. And so, I think my second or third deal that came across my desk, I also got a interview with a pretty prominent company that generates like $1.5 million a day in revenue, selling rocks. It's pretty much a quarry, like a quarry website or quarry company that just sells these aggregates, which is rocks, to be able to make roads. Okay. I'm like, dude, that's crazy. That's a great business. It's a recession-proof business. Like, it's never gonna, go away.
Right.
It's infrastructure. And, I end up, going to the job interview, liked the job interview, got hired for the job as a software engineer. And then, but at the same time, my side hustle again was going back to real estate investing and fixing and flipping, because I still need to make income either way. But I didn't have enough cash or enough passive income to just go cold turkey, basically.
Right.
And so I still need to do all that. So the good thing about the job that I was with, Luckstone, is that they were all about side hustles. They're all about that. And so like they encouraged it, they empowered it. And so I was like, all right, this is the job that I'm looking for. And at the same time, I was fixing and flipping, and people already knew what I was doing at work, and they're like kind of, cheering me on. So it's actually a pretty cool combination, right?
Nice.
So yeah, I just found a really good spot, and and everybody just is having to work out that way.
That's cool. And then, I mean, I think amazing to find the group that is going to support you in like doing these extracurricular activities that'll one day, kind of like take the place of your main job.
Yeah.
But then, you said, is his name Tom? Is that your partner?
Robert,
excuse me.
Yeah, you're good.
Robert never wanted to be on title, or chose never to be on title.
Yeah.
Do you think that drove you to be much more successful? Like, this guy is trusting you to do the right thing, and therefore you felt this, not a burden, but like a push in the direction, like, oh, I have to produce, I have to do my absolute best work, because this human being who I barely know, who I hope to have a relationship with moving forward, but he's trusting me 100%. Like, did that have a pretty big effect on you?
It had an effect to where I was in like a disbelief, but I was like, no one would ever do this like in their sane mind. Right.
You just thought it was crazy.
Yeah, I thought it was crazy for like a hot second. I was like, this guy's a lunatic. But no, like it didn't push me to do the right thing. I've always had, I think, pretty good morals when it comes to right and wrong. And I think at a very early age in my life, like I knew I would be a man of my word because of kind of my upbringing, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, for example, if he were to like say like, hey man, like put me on title, I'm like, all right, let's just pay the fees and let's just get you on title. I've offered it to him several different times in the years that I've known him. Like, hey, do you want to put yourself on title right now? I mean, like, it'd be a good time. Or like, whenever he comes to me about like, hey, let's put myself on title, I'm like, dude, let's do it. I don't care. Let's just pay the cost, get it over with, title, and call it a day. But he's a person that doesn't believe in the financial system sometimes. So he just, he's kind of underneath the radar and wants to be underneath the radar for a while. And kind of that's how he operates. But no, it didn't really change my outlook on of the trust that he would instill upon me and like kind of push me in the right direction. It just kind of further tested my resolve about who I was as an individual.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, you have obviously a lot going on, with all these flips, all these, Gator transactions now, with, everything that you've generated. I mean, you asked me earlier, kind of like, what do I do to kind of stay even keeled and keep your mind in the right space? Like, where does your body or mind take you on a daily basis to kind of, keep that calm, collected, hopefully, frame of mind?
Yeah. So basically, like my morning routine looks like I wake up, I meditate, 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever that looks like, however I feel will set the tone of my day. And then I read my identity statement, which is also known as, affirmation statements, basically on who I inspire to be, because I've learned this in the last 3 years that, words are just spells that we, cast on ourselves and other people. Right. Mm-hmm. Because words will have power. If you give it power, if you don't, it's the same thing. So that's what my morning routine looks like. Then afterwards, I just jump into work and make sure that I am on task with everything. And when work is over, I love to do jujitsu on my spare time and go to the gym and teach and also participate in jujitsu. That's kind of how I dissolve a lot of my stress away and be really present in the moments when I'm there. There's no cell phones, there's no nothing. Like, you can't be distracted if someone's trying to choke you out. You can't look on Instagram or TikTok, whatever the social media at the time is. And then on Friday nights, I mean, I really spend time with my fiance and making sure, I still nourish that relationship and cultivate that relationship as much as I possibly can, because she does a lot for me. Mm-hmm. And then that's basically it. I just have jujitsu and business. And then, there's also travels here and there, but like those are now business travels. But yeah, that's about it.
Nice.
Yeah.
So when are you guys getting married?
Good question. We don't have a date yet. We got proposed to her July 22nd. Her favorite number is 7. My favorite number is 22. So I figured we put a nice, easy remember date on that. And then.
Wait, so you've been engaged a month?
Yeah, exactly. Yep, a month.
And then I met you like 2 days. No,
it was like, I don't know when community camp was, but it was sometime in early July, maybe mid-July. Yeah, it was before that. It was before. So I had a girlfriend when I met you, and now I'm talking to
you. You got engaged right after.
Yeah, pretty much, basically. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So I was like, wait, why didn't you mention that? Like, hey, what's your name? It's like, oh, I just got engaged. Like, oh.
Yeah. So our wedding, man, we haven't really gone that far yet. It's kind of funny, but I was thinking not this coming up February, but maybe next February 27th, because it's the number backwards. Wow. That's really kind of corny and cheesy, but
you're just trying to figure out ways to remember it when you get old.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I'm trying to do. This makes it so much easier, right? Totally. So that's the plan for now, but we haven't made any plans as far as setting up the plans to get married. Yeah. But we'll find out here.
Nice. Kind of, yeah. It makes me, obviously, if you're engaged, I would hope that you have a good relationship with what's her name? Shannon, with a good relationship with Shannon, and communication is strong. And, we talked about this earlier, and it's never going to be that 50-50 where everybody's, doing the exact same amount. Another thing that I, learned and learned myself, but also heard was like, your partner is never going to be everything for you. You're going to have these outside relationships. And so she will fill this bucket, but then your spiritual side, maybe from another one of your buddies, and your whatever this bucket is over here from a family member. Or do you have specific people that you go for any topics that, not that you're not able to discuss with Shannon, just are more fulfilled with somebody else? Like, how do you balance out those relationships?
Yeah, that's a good question, man. So basically with me, with Shannon, I tell her everything. There is no like quote unquote like hidden secrets per se, or like I get what you're saying, but yeah, I think you're 100% right. I have, like, for example, Robert, he fills a bucket where it's like a lot of spiritual related stuff, right? And also business minded too as well. So I have like 2 buckets with one person per se, which is awesome. The other bucket of love and enjoyment, fulfillment is with Shannon. And then with friendships and like just shooting the shit with boys, I have that, but I basically don't talk to them as much because we're on a different like mindset level change. But they're like old friends. It's whenever you talk to them, it's just kind of like picking back up where you left off. Robert can also do that too as well. We can always shoot the shit and just talk like men and boys or whatever. But I also have like real estate folks too as well, that we can just talk business, talk shop. And then I have the jiu-jitsu community where we're just being silly and stupid and open and just like kind of explaining our life situation and kind of being relatable, just being on a very personal level, right? So I have a lot of buckets that I can tap into, but to answer your question, it's like a whole bunch of people, all different kind of situation and different all walks of life, which is just very, very humbling to get to know everybody, Yeah.
I feel the same way. I was with a friend the other day, and she asked like, hey, who's your best friend?
Yeah.
Like, I guess I could choose from, 7 different people, that are very, very good friends, but I can have different conversations with each person, like I'm going to have a spiritual conversation with this person and definitely not this person. Like this for business or, for, having, a beer one night or something. It's like everybody fits into a specific position and sometimes they overlap, but there's not that one relationship that's like all encompassing that can answer any question or provide guidance on all different situations.
Yeah, I've been meaning, like, during the last during community camp, I actually had a conversation with several different people about spirituality and all that stuff, and I've been trying to mix that into the conversations because business is business, but it's also dry and boring sometimes. And if you put people in that box, because not everybody's like that, obviously. I mean, when I met you, I was like, let's talk about spirituality, like during our hike.
I was just going to say that was cool because, I mean, ride on the bus next morning. It's like, hey, we're going to go for a walk if you want to come. And it could have been very, very dry talking about real estate, which I feel like a lot of those conversations are.
Yeah.
And I don't think we touched on it once. It went in this like completely different direction that was very refreshing and like, oh, okay, well, we'll be friends.
Yeah, man. Because spirituality is, in my opinion, it transcends business relationships and, just this realm of reality. I think that is like, more fascinating than anything that I like to discuss right now, because it's like, oh, what do you think about, a soul or afterlife, or what do you think we go? I think that's like way more thought-provoking, conversational, stimulating, and it prolongs. It kind of gets you like the depth of that individual. Like, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? Have you, what are your thoughts on it? And I think I can talk about spirituality for a long period of time versus before I just really couldn't before meeting Robert. And I was like, dude, this is actually really cool. And about consciousness and about being aware and knowing that, do you even know that you're aware? Like when you are thinking about these thoughts, do you understand that right there is a muscle that you can get to control? Like
Right.
those shifts of mindsets, like thought-provoking thoughts, you're like, oh snap, like I didn't even realize I could do that. I didn't know that thing was ruling me and my behavior and businesses and helping me, like causing me to self-sabotage. Like, and the fact that like I had a conversation with this person yesterday about worthiness. Like, do you feel worthy?
That's a dangerous question.
Yeah. Do you feel worthy to receive the amount of money that you are receiving? Or do you not feel worthy and you pass along that opportunity because you just feel like you don't deserve it? Right. So those are the questions that I was being asked from Robert. Right. And my moments of struggle and self-sabotage because I didn't feel worthy to receive the blessings of this large sum of money. And it's like, like it's also ties into imposter syndrome.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah. Right. So the mindset cultivation of things, if you find that in like a business partner, dude, it changes the whole game. It changes who you become, how much money you make, how much value you add, and what you're able to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I can contribute a lot of my success to that one individual because he's helped me and catapult me through different stages of my mindset that I was lacking in. It's like super powerful.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So was this mostly conversation, or did he point you in the direction of, any, books that I need to read now?
So a lot of it, dude, like in the beginning of it, it was tough. So in the beginning of the relationship, it was very like platonic, very like probing. He was probing on where I was at mentally, mindset, and just like overall spiritually. And he just wanted to get like a general but defined picture of who I was and where I was at the time. And we would have long conversations about it. He would basically present ideas to me and have me think about them and have me journal about them, have me basically regurgitate what he told me to make sure that we're on the same page. But then as our relationship became longer, as far as friendship, it became more intense in the levels of business. So what I mean by that is like, eventually I joined the team of his company and we had hard agreements. Like when I say hard agreements, I mean like this is an agreement that you will never experience in your entire life with anybody else unless you have these agreements with this other person. So what it pretty much caters to is, or what it outlines is, if you show up in a way that is like not happy to be here and your energy kind of sucks and you're egotistic and you're not humble, all the negative energy that you can possibly imagine with the human spectrum, we are allowed to give each other heads up. Like, for example, like you show up and you don't even know you're like being egotistic and you're bragging about your accomplishments and you
Mhm.
are seeking, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? The uh, notoriety or whatever. And we're like, hey, Eric, hey, man, you're kind of showing up, you know, egotistic and you're not really kind of like talking down to everybody. Right. And you feel like you're not doing that. You feel like, no, I'm actually, you know, being myself. I'm talking normal, how I normally talk. But you get a heads up from two people that feel that way. Your first gut reaction, my gut reaction, was to give an excuse instead of being grateful and saying thank you, thank you, thank you. Because the first two thank yous, you don't mean it. You want to say, no, screw you. That's not right. And your ego takes over. Your ego will take over your thought process. And by
Right.
the third thank you, you should realize that they actually care for your well-being. And if you don't do those steps, then it gets worse and worse and worse for you, because now you're digging yourself in a hole that you have to go back and apologize for. And so these are hard agreements, like with anything in business. Like if you show up in any other way, if you miss like, you know, if you miss like a piece of information and you gave some excuse, right? Like, oh, I didn't get it because, you know, such and such seller told me to, you know, that they didn't have time or whatever. I'm like, dude, that's not an excuse. Just call them back. And so, yeah, so it was like really no BS, like kind of situation. It's like a lot harder than the boot camp that I went for the Marine Corps. It was way harder than that, which is insane. Um, and you know, it's funny. I didn't know how to apologize until I met Robert. As crazy as that sounds, saying I'm sorry is not an apology. What are you sorry for? Yeah,
Okay, so it's
yeah.
having the reason.
It's actually this way. All right, so you take responsibility for what happened and you do a play by play of how you showed up and what you did. Then you take ownership, or so you've defined the facts, take ownership of it, and then you provide steps moving forward. Hey, you can count on me for not doing XYZ anymore. And if I show up that way, please give me a heads up on who I'm being, and I'll be grateful for you, and I'll provide, you know, and I will say these grateful things for you. So that is an apology, basically. So,
So
like, for
it's,
example, yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, it's not even, I'm sorry. We don't even
Okay,
say
well, so it's the acknowledgement of what I did.
yeah, acknowledgement of what you did.
Uh, just taking inventory of that, telling
Yep.
you how I am not going to do that moving forward, and
Yep.
then giving permission to call me out on it once again if it were to arise.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because like you say, like, if you, let's say
Maybe
you,
I'm sorry, it's so much easier.
no, it's more lazy. It's like super lazy, but you don't even know what, because you can say, I'm sorry, but I have no idea what you're sorry for.
Right.
Right.
Which is the root of many arguments in a relationship.
Exactly. So like it's crazy because once you go through these, we call it the tragic 4 R's or whatever, tragic 4 R's, yeah. And then once you distill upon these like bullet points, like it becomes very clear to the recipient that that they understand that you know what you did, how you did it, and what you plan on doing moving forward to make sure that doesn't happen again. And so I was like, dude, this is crazy. And I also put that in ChatGPT too as well. I'm like, how do you apologize? And it just kind of spit out this kind of same exact thing.
Really?
I'm like, wow. I'm like, oh snap, I don't know how to apologize.
That's interesting. That's got to be extremely that's humbling and taxing,
Yeah.
mentally to go through that and be like, instead of just saying like, hey, I'm sorry because I don't want to deal with this anymore. Like, I know what I did wrong, kind of, let's drop it. But actually going through that exercise,
Yeah.
I don't know that I'd do that every time. I'm thinking of like a recent instance where I had to own up to something, then doing a mental checklist. I was like, okay, I think I did that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I usually just, if I'm called out on something, instead of responding immediately to say like, no, you're wrong, this is why I did it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll usually like write down my response, or at least be like, cool, I got it. I'm gonna think about that for a little bit, because I think the knee-jerk reaction oftentimes, gets people in trouble.
Yeah.
To saying what they actually think. So I will think about it, write it, wait, write my scathing email back or whatever it is, and be like, okay, well, I know I'm not going to send this, but I'm getting out my emotions right now. Let me think on it for, a few hours or day or whatever it is. And then really take inventory of my words and my thoughts. And, if I need to proceed in that manner, or figure out a more constructive way to talk to somebody.
You'll be surprised on even the conversations that I've had with sellers, that even though it's not my fault at all whatsoever, and it's the seller's fault, and I know it's the seller's fault because I've had recording conversations with them, right? I just go ahead and take responsibility, and it clears the energy. Like, it clears the energy for everybody to move forward. And we play this game called Whoever Takes Responsibility Wins. Like, no matter if it's your fault or not, it doesn't matter. And so, like, when you do this powerful exercise, you'll realize that everything just goes way more smoothly.
Yeah. And I think oftentimes the person on the other side of the conversation who's accusing you or whatever it may be, they're ready for a fight, right?
Yeah.
They're ready to argue. And like, I'm going back to this situation that happened recently with work, and I was on the phone, and I knew these individuals were looking at me for, a fall person. And of course I was going to stand up for myself and be like, no, it's not my fault, this and that. And I was just said, cool, I understand what happened. It's not going to happen again. These are the steps we're going to have in place. Like, but sure, my fault. And it was just silence.
Yeah.
Because you can't argue with that, right?
Yeah.
It's like, no, but it's definitely your fault. It's like, yeah, I know, it's mine. Like, I got it. Let's move forward. And it was kind of awkward because there was nowhere to go. Awkward for them. I was just sitting there like, okay, how are we going to go forward? Are we good?
Yeah, exactly. It's actually pretty cool to experience that moment. And actually, it works in relationships too as well. We've had VAs like at Flow Property Group, where we had a VA, they were married, and the male had an argument with his wife, and we're like, hey, I tried this for size. Just take responsibility, take ownership, and pretty much what I just told you, take your accountability of everything you did, how you're gonna move forward, and you can count on me moving forward, basically. And so that happened. And then because they were like, the married couple was like not talking for a couple of days. And as soon as he took responsibility, everything was back to normal. Like, just like that. I'm like, yeah, dude, it works. Yeah, it works. We just saved your marriage. Like, you don't have to go marriage counseling. Just take responsibility. That's all you got to do.
I remember I was at my cousin's wedding a couple years ago, and one of the other cousins, like, I show up and his wife is just fuming. And I was like, okay, like, that's not going to be fun. And so they left the party early, and it was clear that they weren't having a good time, or his wife wasn't having a good time. And then the next day, everything is back to normal, and they're just, all lovey. And I'm like, hey, everything good? He's like, yeah, no problem. Everything's fine. I was like, what happened? He's like, well, I apologize. I was like, what for? He goes, I have no idea. But I was like, but everything's fine. He's like, that's all she needed to hear. I was like, all right. Glad that one worked out for you.
I think it'd be better if he knew what he would apologize for, right? Obviously, but yeah.
Oh, no, guaranteed. Because promise he did the exact same thing like
Yeah.
that night or the night after, but he was just like, make it stop.
Oh my gosh. So that's kind of how I handle my relationships, basically, in a nutshell. And all my business relationships too, as well. Just take full responsibility on everything. I mean, whether it's your fault or not. I mean,
No,
yeah.
Be the fall guy and then move forward. I think it generates a lot of respect from those that you work with, or if they're working under you or whoever.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this guy's not trying to pass it off on somebody else, and he's going to make the change and move forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think right there is like really powerful, just to learn and understand, like, as a human being, and not only in life but also in personal life too as well. Personal.
I like those steps though. I'm going to implement those immediately because I'm sure I've pissed somebody off recently.
You can always ask ChatGPT too as well. AI knows how to apologize better than like 99% of the human race, which is hilarious.
Yeah, I still haven't used ChatGPT, and now you have shown me the way with like 3 or 4 things, or at least talked about it.
Yeah,
so I'll probably spend the rest of my day just screwing around on it.
It's fun, but the thing is with that, you gotta make sure you give it the right prompts, right? Yeah. But yeah, man, I think that's a good stopping point for this first podcast. Where can everybody get a hold of you, Eric?
Oh, I am not active on Instagram, but you can definitely. Well, I mean, I'm on there, but I don't normally post, which I need to start. I would like to start generating some content, but that is eric.irv. So ERIC.IRV.
Yeah.
And then that's basically it. I'm on Facebook. And then I don't know. How about you?
Yeah, same place. Instagram at Philip H. Ty, and TikTok Philip Ty, and then Facebook Philip Ty. Let me see what else I got going on. And then there's also LinkedIn too as well. You can just search my name. You'll probably see my face, Philip Ty. But that's it, man. That's all I got for that social media handles. Do you have any final words for yourself or for the audience?
Oh man, myself or the audience?
Your future self.
Future self. Take responsibility. I'm actually, I truly am appreciative of that kind of like 4-step. I think it was 4-step process on how to take ownership. I think it will change a lot of, or how to say sorry, change a lot of relationships, or like the direction of conversation or conflict, whatever it may be, both in personal and business. So that's super cool.
Especially when the line of work that you're in, you're dealing with a lot of customer facing clients, right?
Lots of emotions.
A lot of emotions. If you can take that emotion out and take ownership of it, I feel like you'll have even more success moving forward because of those personal relationships that you end up, nurturing and developing over time. I mean, my final thoughts, man. I got to know you, man. It was freaking cool. I didn't realize, and we're battle buddies. I didn't even realize that you were in the healthcare industry. So like, it gives me a bunch of ideas of like the things that we could do together potentially, but not in California though, but somewhere else potentially.
Definitely not in California. I'll travel to you.
Yeah, exactly, man. So, man, final thoughts for myself. This has been such a great honor and privilege to kind of do my first podcast with you. It's really, really, really unique. Hopefully there's a lot more to come. But that's it, man. Well, that's it, guys. Talk to you guys later.